Welcome back to the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with Darin Zoccali and our special guest, Brian Arrigoni from Horseshoe Indianapolis, to talk our best bets and fades of the weekend, particularly at Saratoga for Travers weekend. And we'll also discuss some Del Mar racing. And if you were here with us last week, you may have noticed that all three of our jury members hit their best bets. So no pressure, and congrats to you, Darin.
Yeah, I love giving out 4 to 5 shots that romp. Yeah, Annazette looked pretty good. She's been something special since coming over here to the United States, and certainly think she's going to be a major factor in that division, not just the rest of this year, but probably next year as well as she gets older. So, but she is something else. That turn of foot is nothing short of electric.
All right. And Brian, for anyone at home that may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, certainly. First and foremost, basically a degenerate bettor through and through. I got my start over at Canterbury Park about 6 years ago, made my way down to Horseshoe Indianapolis, which I've certainly enjoyed over the past 2 seasons. We might have the longest meet in history with 127-day racing meet, but I've certainly enjoyed getting accustomed to the jockeys and the trainers and everything that comes over at Horseshoe Indianapolis, featuring some low takeout pick fives and things like that. And when we are able to get on the turf course, usually some big fields and potentially some big payouts as well. So started over at Canterbury Park, made my way down to Horseshoe Indianapolis, and certainly loving every minute of it.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And Darin, real quick, start us off on any promos we should be on the lookout for at TwinSpires.
Yeah, the $10 money back at Saratoga in full effect. We got a race on Friday, a couple of races on Saturday, including the Travers Stakes, which will be race 12 on a great 13 race program up at the spa. So obviously we have a money back feature. We have the Del Mar Daily Double Down. That's every Thursday and Friday, running through the rest of the Del Mar meet, where you get a bonus once you hit 2 daily doubles. All your daily double winnings will be bonus 25% up to $25. And it's the last weekend for the Breeders' Cup Challenge Bankroll Builder for this edition of it, as we'll be paying that out on August the 31st. So we have 3 races that qualify for the challenge this weekend: the Ballerina, the Sword Dancer, and the Pat O'Brien. So it's your last chance to get above those handle thresholds to get your bankroll builder paid out August 31st. Then we're going to do it all over again September and October with a big payday right before the Breeders' Cup as well. So plenty, as always is the case, in terms of promotions here at TwinSpires.
And we'll be talking about a few of those races here today on the jury. And Brian, since you're our guest, we'll let you start things off. What is your best bet this weekend, and where are you going to play that?
Well, it's always tough to follow up a perfect 3 for 3 best bet with last week's jury. So I'm kind of in deep waters here, I do believe. But I'm going to look towards race number 9 on Saturday over at Saratoga, kicking us off with a grade 1 Alan Jerkins Memorial Stakes. And this is only a 6-horse field, but it does kick off the first leg of that late pick 5. And I'm a big horizontal player, so I'm always looking for a good single. I'm not sure how much value will provide for 5-2 on the morning line with New York Thunder for a win wager, but this is a horse I'm going to single, key in on my tickets, go a little bit deeper elsewhere. Was lucky enough to get just under 6-1 last time out on New York Thunder. I think this horse is just blossoming and going in the right direction. Has been awfully quick. I'm hopeful that the 2 Bob Baffert trainees will take some action in Arabian Lion and Fort Bragg. I just think New York Thunder is the quickest of this group. I know there's a lot of speed on paper. Drew's Gold is kind of tailed off. Could be a horse who's overlooked in this spot, but New York Thunder's done nothing wrong. I mean, as a 2-year-old, won on the synthetic, then they won on the turf. They dominated last time out, going 6.5 furlongs. I don't think that extra half furlong is going to be any issue. And frankly, if Bob wants to send either Arabian Lion or Fort Bragg, would welcome that challenge on the front end, because I think New York Thunder is the real deal in here. And still a little bit green. Didn't really change leads all that much in the grade 2 Amsterdam last time out. Like I said, and Darin, touted a 4-5 shot last week. If they win, that's all that matters. And I think New York Thunder is long gone on the front end.
What about you, Darin?
Yeah, that's an interesting race. I went back and forth on it. I actually ended up on Fort Bragg, hoping that New York Thunder get pressed by Arabian Lion, and I thought maybe Fort Bragg might escape with a little bit more value in there. I think Verifying's in a really tough spot with the speed lined up to the outside. It's a very difficult race. I'm all over Archangelo as my best bet, though, in the Travers Stakes. Love this horse in the Belmont. Ran huge that day. He's been working like an absolute machine. All morning reports have just been A+ from anybody that talks about it. David Renningover, who does the Fokker reports there for DRF in the morning, as well, has just been glowing about how this horse has been doing. Javier Castellano sticks here as well. I just think he's the now horse. I think he's coming to his own. He's ran some big speed figures in the past. He ran another one in the Belmont Stakes. And the way the race sets up on paper, I think he's in a great spot. I think National Treasure and Scotland are likely to go. And I think Archangelo has enough tactical speed that if they want to lay third, fourth, just off the speed, get first run, stalk and pounce outside the quarter pole, try to open up some daylight to hold off the likes of maybe Forte and Mage and others, I think that's the trip he's going to get. I think he's high on talent. I think he's the now horse. And I don't think Forte, who likes to wait on horses, is going to be able to do that and track down a horse like Archangelo, much like he was not able to do that in the Belmont Stakes. So we're going to take Archangelo. I think he's going to win the Travers. I think he's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. And I think he's your horse of the year, in fact.
Well, I have to ask you, Darin, because you broke the news a couple of weeks ago about Javier Castellano choosing the mount basically for Archangelo, in the fact that the connections of Mage decided to go ahead and name Luis Saez. But with Luis Saez's injury, we now have Flavien Prat. Are you concerned at all with that rider switch?
I'm not really concerned with the rider switch. You know, I did think that if Castellano thought that Mage was the clear-cut better horse, when they went to him and said, you're going to have to make a choice here, he would have just picked Mage. The fact that he said to the connections of Mage, I can't make that decision now, I need more time, told me that he really likes Archangelo and the horse must be blossoming right now. So I put that as a check mark in the Archangelo column and a negative for Mage. I don't think Flavien Prat riding Mage is a negative at all. I just think Archangelo is the now horse of this division. I thought Mage ran very well in the Haskell. He might have been a little bit short that day, and he certainly has a right to improve. I think he's going to be better at a mile and a quarter, but I think Archangelo, in fact, is the horse to beat, and I don't think he's going to be the favorite either.
All right. And as far as my best bet, this doesn't normally happen, but Brian, you and I had the same horse for our best bet with New York Thunder. And for a lot of the reasons that you named, he's 4 for his career, coming off a 108 Brisnet speed rating, the highest last race speed figure among the field. Early speed is winning, and 7 furlong dirt sprints at Saratoga. So a lot to like. And of course, as you mentioned, the 2 Baffert horses, I think will take a lot of money. So hopefully we get a little bit better of a price on New York Thunder as well. Let's talk about the horses we're not going to be backing this weekend. Darin, which horse are you fading at a short price?
Yeah, I'm heading to Del Mar. They have a maiden special weight for 2-year-olds in race number 4 on Saturday, going a mile. Miramati, who has been a short price favorite in each of his first 2 starts, has burnt a lot of cash, been disappointing, $1 million purchase, is now stretching out to a mile. So perhaps maybe he will improve, but he's lost ground in the stretch in each of his first 2 starts. He gets hammered at the windows each and every time. And there's an interesting first-time starter here for Richard Mandela, son of Street Sense, out of the mare Spellbound, who was a grade 2 stakes winner. She's produced 2 winners from 2 starters, including a stakes winner. Love the way this horse has been working, especially bullet workouts, going 6 furlongs, a nice 5 furlong move in preparation for this. Mike Smith aboard. Miramati seems to always run into a horse that's better than him. I think it's going to happen again. He's going to be favored, and I think Sense is going to be the real deal as a first-time starter against him.
What about you, Brian?
I'm going to go back to Saratoga once again. We're going to go to the Grade 1 Sword Dancer Stakes, 1.5 miles on that inner turf course in there. And I think Channel Maker is going to take a lot of money in here, and it's a complete pitch for me. This is a horse who got away with ridiculous fractions on the front end last time out on a good turf course, getting a little long in the tooth, 9 years old now, and that was the first win in some time. On paper, certainly looks like lone speed, but what's kind of overlooked, I think, in this spot, that July 30th race where they really went on to dominate, Rebels Romance was all of 1 to 2, clipped heels at the top of the lane, and really affected quite a bit in that field, both the horse in front as well as the horses in the back. So I don't think Channel Maker's performance last time out was nearly as good as it looks on paper. You also got 15 to 1 just a couple of weeks ago. Today, 7 to 2 on the morning line in lone speed. I'm hopeful that people dive into Channel Maker, because I'm going to take a stand against. I think Stone Age is a horse you really need to make some decisions on. 2 for 15 for Chad Brown, a horse who's going to take a lot of action. It's possible you could potentially throw out the top 2 A and B horses in Channel Maker and Stone Age. I think Pioneer Spirit is an interesting horse in here for Linda Rice and Irad Ortiz, who's a perfect 4 for 4 on the turf.
All right. Well, Brian, we just met today, but I don't know. We're on the same wavelength there because I'm also talking about the Sword Dancer, and I'm fading Stone Age at 6-5. I don't like that price. He's over 4 at this distance and only has finished in the money one time, which was a second in the Breeders' Cup Turf. 2 Rebels Romance finished more than 2 lengths behind. And in the US is 0 for 3 as well, making his first start for Chad Brown, a high percentage trainer. But with his record at 1.5 miles, I'm going to look elsewhere. I also like Pioneering Spirit 8-1. Could have been my best bet, really. But I like the fact that since picking up Irad Ortiz Jr. 4 for 4, Linda Rice is a 22% winner at Saratoga. And I also think Soldier Rising is interesting. Was bumped hard at the start in the Bowling Green, which was won by Channel Maker. But I think, 2 back, finished second at 1.25 miles with a 107 Brisnet speed figure. So with a better trip, could be intriguing here as well. Well, let's talk about some other races this weekend as well. Is there anything else that you'll be watching for? Let's go with you. We'll start with you, Brian.
I'm just intrigued by this Grade 1 Travers Stakes. And no, in my opinion, it's a premier race on what is an excellent weekend of racing here around the country. Horseshoe Indianapolis, we've got a 12-race card as well that kicks off on Saturday. But the Travers Stakes is one that everyone's going to be looking forward to. And hopefully we're still alive in that pick 5. I'm only going to use 2 horses in Forte and Arcangelo. I know that's not necessarily all that creative by any means, but you guys touched on it earlier. Mage has kind of gone through a lot and really put things together on the first Saturday in May. And since then, I've been relatively disappointed. I know the Preakness coming back on short rest kind of ran evenly with National Treasure getting away with some lone speed. But then that comeback race at Monmouth, I didn't think there was really any excuse that day. Kind of went right up and was repelled. And now Darin's talked a lot about the connections with Javier Castellano, Luis Saez. Saez gets injured on Wednesday. Now they go over to Flavian Pratt. Mage is just a fade for me. I do think Forte and Arcangelo have kind of established themselves as the 2 that have done nothing wrong overall. I know Forte had some issues in that first Saturday in May where he didn't get to race, but he's 7 for 9. And Mage is just a horse who's kind of lost ground in a lot of his starts, with the exception of the Kentucky Derby. And that's troubling for me. I start and finish with the speed on paper. I think National Treasure in Scotland do enough to potentially compromise themselves. If one of them does clear off on the front end, that could be a little bit concerning. But in the Travers, I'm going to go Forte and Arcangelo. And instead of usually playing this 50-cent Saturday pick 5 for 50 cents, I might hit it for $2 or $3, try and make some money.
What do you think, Darin?
Yeah, I mean, the Travers Stakes, it's the first time in I don't even know how long that you have the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes winners all in the same field, 3 different horses. And the really ironic thing is that none of them are going to be favored. Couldn't have predicted that by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a compelling Travers for sure. I'm looking at a horse who's actually coming back in the Pat O'Brien Stakes at Del Mar that I thought was interesting. Horse by the name of Visitant. And if you follow the Midwest racing in the winter, especially at Turfway Park, you've gotten very familiar with this horse. He raced for trainer Bill Morey for a couple of years. He was a synthetic specialist at Turfway. When he would go out there, he would just dominate these horses in some of those minor stakes all the way up to some of their better races. He did try a couple of tougher spots like the Ali Sheba on conventional dirt. But this horse was reportedly retired after his 4th place finish in the Forego at age 7 to Stan Stud out in Southern California. I assume he did that. But in July 1st, he went back on the work tab, and he's been working since then, coming off a bullet workout at Del Mar in 59-3. And all of a sudden, the 7-year-old Visitant makes a reappearance, and he's going to be running in the Grade 2 Pat O'Brien. So I thought that was a very interesting story. Now in the barn of Peter Miller, curious to see what Visitant does with a change of scenery, a change of surface, going to conventional dirt. Certainly a fan favorite of the Turfway Park faithful. So be curious to see what he does in the Pat O'Brien Stakes.
Yeah, that is kind of an interesting angle there. I'm going to take it back to Saratoga real quick and talk about the Ballerina Handicap. We have Echo Zulu and Goodnight Olive, 2 horses in contention for the Eclipse Award for Older Dirt Female. Of course, Echo Zulu torched the honorable miss at Saratoga last out with a 112 Brisnet speed rating, won by 7.25 lengths, but is meeting Goodnight Olive here, who beat Echo Zulu by 2.5 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint last November. I've always had a soft spot for Goodnight Olive. If she hadn't gotten boxed in on the rail at the Derby City Distaff, I think she'd have a 9-race win streak right now. And I'm going to give her the edge. She's 9-5 on the morning line. We've got Echo Zulu at 7-5 on the morning line. So not a good price either way. But Goodnight Olive comes off a layoff. I think she's going to begin another long win streak here. So she is my pick in the Ballerina. What do you all think with this duel? Or do you have a different horse?
I think it's really fascinating because a lot of people have written off Goodnight Olive because of how fast Echo Zulu has run, especially her most recent start. Now, sometimes fast fillies can jump up and they run huge figures and they never run back to them. They can be prone to the bounce, kind of have to see it a couple of times to believe it. And I think Echo Zulu is going to be somewhere around the neighborhood of 4-5 here. And I think Goodnight Olive is going to be closer to 8-5, 9-5, because everybody is on the Echo Zulu train right now. I know Goodnight Olive has not put up the gaudy speed figure. She's not dominating, but she hasn't exactly been bad this year either. And this is the race that launched her last year when she got really, really good. She loves this track. If you're going to get twice the price on Goodnight Olive as you're going to get on Echo Zulu, I would just take Goodnight Olive and I would make Echo Zulu prove it to me one more time.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Hopefully have you back sometime soon. And be sure to check out those promos that Darin mentioned earlier in the show. And you can catch us on Tuesday for the Racing Roundtable, where we're going to recap a lot of these races on Tuesday as well. We'll see you next time.